Does anybody happen to know that song?
Star Wars.
No, but I'm so glad that everybody keeps asking that because that was part of my plan. West.
It's one of the planets, right?
It is one of the planets.
Oh.
Does anybody have a guess as to what planet
Mars.
it is? It is Mars.
It's Mars.
What makes you think that?
Because Mars is the planet of war and evilness. And because I know all the other ones. And evilness and Mars.
It was Mars. Yay. I'm so glad. Lauren, what were you going to say?
It reminded me of dinosaurs.
It reminded you of what?
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs. I like that. Well, yeah, okay, so again, that's really interesting because the planets are by Gustav Holst, there we go, who was actually like one of the biggest inspirations for John Williams. So that's why everybody always thinks that this sounds like Star Wars, because it really sounds like Star Wars. And he also wrote the music for Jurassic Park. So there you go. That's why you're sort of getting those vibes from it. Yeah, and then exactly. So Mars is named after the Roman god of war. So that's why it has this like really, really aggressive sounds to it. It sounds like a battle actively happening. And I think in some of the printings it's called a battle. So that's really interesting. All right, so what do? Let me find my picture. Does anybody want to share something that they have for the first question? So that was 2 emotions that the song conveys.
I said nerve and edge of my seatness.
What makes you say that?
I don't know, I just was on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen next?
Yeah.
This is crazy. And I said nerve because, wow, I'm nervous.
Well, it has all those fake outs. Halfway there in the middle, we were like, totally thought that it was about to be over, and then it just started right back up again.
That's my seat.
I agree with Daria. I said fear, but I also said triumph.
Oh, what felt like triumph to you?
Mostly like the selection of like instruments. Like there's a lot of brass and woodwind, and that feels more triumphant than like strings feels more fearful to me. And there are like sections with more and less. And those, I think they convey those respective emotions.
Absolutely. Chloe.
I also said triumph, and I said vengeance as well.
Ooh. So does this make sense with war? I feel like all of your theme words really got that. Lauren? Adventure. Ooh, it's good. You really like that one, right?
Adventure, that was good.
Yeah. Anger. I feel like for me, that's the one that I hear the most. I think because you can literally hear in like the way that they all play their instruments that like, especially with the strings, because they have some of those like quiet, nervous parts, but then when it really gets going, it's like a really aggressive kind of angry sound. So, anything else on the emotions that it brings up? Okay, we'll go to 2 adjectives to describe the elements. Have you heard of anything about that? Does anyone have something they want to share? This is a harder one. Ronan.
I said allegro.
Allegro.
And
And
forte.
forte. There you go. There's quite a lot of forte. There are some quiet sections, so you really get like a sense of how loud it is, but most of it is definitely forte.
This might be a bit advanced.
Oh.
I just don't know. I said polyphonic.
Polyphonic. Do you want to describe what that means in case some people don't know?
No, I don't.
No, you don't?
It just means that there's a lot going on. You know, that's exactly what it means by textbook definition.
Exactly.
And crescendo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lauren?
Sorry for my answer.
Oh, what part were you going to say?
I was going to say there was like a lot of sections where there was like a full like crescendo.
Yeah.
Like, engaging.
I feel like especially at the end there, they have that the whole like, and then it just like keeps going, and I think that comes back to like keeps you right on the edge of your seat because it never quite gets to that big sound that you want, and then yeah, so that's a really good one. Were there a lot of instruments or very few instruments? A lot of instruments. What do we think? Is it like a whole orchestra?
Full symphony.
A full symphony, exactly. Are there a wide range of notes or a smaller range of notes? What do you guys think of that? A wide range? Yeah. I think it's kind of in the middle, honestly. I think it stays sort of in the same range musically the whole time. There's no like super, super high part or super, super low part. They just sort of consistently stay in this like really big range. All right, 2 instruments you hear. There are a lot more than 2 instruments. So what are ones that like stood out to you, Lauren?
Trumpet.
Trumpet? Yep, absolutely.
Drums.
Drums. That's a good one. Cymbals. Yes, we've got a big crash at the beginning. Were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say trumpet.
You were gonna say trumpet? Yeah. Well, that's a big one.
I have a question.
Yes.
And this just might be, I was never really like locked in in Winds of Kirk. But what is, when we say horn, what are we referring to? Because there's so many types, but I feel like we'll just be like, oh yeah, the horn is in there. And you're like, yeah, you're right. Because there's French horn, there's upper horns that I can't remember the names of.
Right. Yeah, so the official term for like a horn is going to be different from what you're really going to hear as a horn. So most of the time when somebody is saying that like we hear the horns, they're really going to be talking about like all of the brass instruments, like the trumpet, the French horn.
I disagree.
No?
I think that people will think of horns as French horn and brass as brass. So you
See, I
refer
think
to it,
Well,
I think, well, so,
but I do think that, well, musicians, yes, and technically, yes.
and it
but
also may change
When
based on
I've
the
done this, I did this in middle school, and this is what introduced me to Holst. And so we all said horns, because when you're a kid, all of the
Yeah.
like brass instruments feel like a horn to you, and they have a similar enough sound that that's what's like. And a horn, especially when they're really loud, a horn to a little kid is like it like announces that the king is here, and it's that like big blaring sound. And so we definitely called all of those sounds a horn, even though they're not technically that.